Hey everybody, this is Steve, Average Joe's Fantasy Football for IDP Plus, and I've got my partner here, Johnny freaking F1. We've got a pretty quick show for you guys. Not a whole lot has been happening in the NFL world, but we do have some great stuff to talk about with fantasy prior to rookies. Obviously, everything is about the NFL rookies right now, and we're excited. We're going to actually be together. We're doing some stuff next week for IDP Plus, so make sure you guys check out our live stream. We'll be obviously talking all the rookies, our analysis in the moment of what's happening there. So, how are you feeling tonight?
Man, I'm great. I'm great. I'm in Pittsburgh. We got a lot of rain over this week. A lot of work. I've been doing a lot of work. I do some side hustles on rental properties. So it's now I'm honing in on fantasy football. We got the draft coming up next week. So a lot of moving parts on my side, but you know what it is. Everything's good in the hood. So I'm ready to rock, man. I'm having a good time and looking forward to talking some fantasy tonight.
Yeah, I wish we had some rain here down in the south. It's getting to the point. It's I think we're hitting mid 90s,
Oh God.
and it's not even August yet. It is going to be horrendous. So, gotta get the baby powder ready. Start getting prepared for this hot weather. I'm not looking forward to it at all, but
Yeah, I'll take rain over
um,
90 degrees.
yeah, absolutely. I'm overworking my irrigation right now at this point. So we are going to talk obviously some fantasy news, some extensions, maybe some voluntary camps have started. We talk a little bit about that. Now, before we obviously talk into that, I want to go over the rookie draft. Now, we talked about the NFL rookie draft happening, but here at IDP Plus, we've got our comprehensive, really like one of a kind IDP Plus rookie guide. Like, there's a lot of rookie guides out there, but we're also going to mention defensive players to help you guys out in your league. So, with that said, it is a limited time right now for $9.99 to get that because it will go up soon. But so again, $9.99, make it simple. That way you guys are prepared, ready for your NFL drafts. Obviously, most people are drafting after next week, after the NFL draft. So again, this is a great guide. And there's going to be constant updates for the NFL guide as well. So you're not just getting it and that's it. Like we're going to be constantly updating to get you guys prepared with any analysis and expertise that we can to provide you guys with that. So, with that said, let's talk extensions. There were three or four extensions that happened this past week that are pretty big. The biggest one is Devonta Smith extending 3 more years with the Philadelphia Eagles with a $75 million contract, making it $25 million a year. For me, I think that's a big one. You're getting the core, right? AJ Brown, Devonta Smith together. Obviously, you've got Jalen Hurts tied up for years to come. So this offensive core is not going to change. And I think, at least from my standpoint, the value of Devonta Smith has stayed the same, or if not increased a little bit. Because in fantasy, he could easily still be a wide receiver one. There are games he absolutely puts up and just dominates. There are games he can outperform AJ Brown. So keeping this core together, I think, is huge for Philly. I think it's a huge thing for obviously Devonta. You're not having to question where he's going to end up going in the next few years. He's going to be in a very stable offense, even with the struggles that Jalen Hurts had last season. Devonta still was a very solid wide receiver in fantasy. Where do you kind of rank Devonta right now?
I think I got him in my wide receiver dynasty rankings, late teens, maybe 18, 20, something like that. And that was before the signing. So, a lot of uncertainty, what was going to happen. We got a bad taste in our mouths with how the Eagles left us in this season. So that was a little bit in my mind too. But yeah, Devonta Smith, it seems like when the season's all said and done, you look back at the numbers, the stats still back it up. Even though he was a little bit inconsistent week to week, by the season's end, you still got your overall points, so hopefully that didn't kill you those in and out weeks. But yeah, overall, I like the continuity here. You're locked up with Jalen Hurts. I think he's still young enough that whatever happened last year, don't let it linger. It's not like you got a guy 32 hanging on by a thread. Now they get Saquon Barkley too. Interested to see how that affects the team. They lose Kelsey on the line too, so. A lot of moving parts, but it's at the same time a lot of continuity there. So Devonta Smith, still a young guy. I still think he can, take that next leap. Hopefully he catches some more deep balls this year. It seemed like, he that was something that kind of regressed a little bit, but I think he gets back to, and I think it's a great, signing for the Eagles and a great vote of confidence, especially in Dynasty for his stock. So I think I'll probably put him maybe a peg or two higher on my rankings, maybe 16, 17 now, but yeah, that's where I like him right now. And I still think, like you, the the value doesn't change. If anything, it may increase with consistent continuity.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, even before the signing, I think I had Devonta at I think wide receiver 14 in my dynasty, which again, ever so changing, especially with rookies coming in. I will say this as a Cowboy fan, I don't like the signing. I don't want to deal with seeing him twice a year. But with that said, as far as the fantasy aspect, I'm actually excited for it. Now I have a question. If Devonta had not signed the extension, becomes a free agent, signs anywhere else, would you have moved him up any higher, or do you think this is like the best spot for him?
I think you could go either way. On one hand, maybe he gets more volume. Maybe he becomes like a different, volume receiver, and that's one thing that he's really not able to do in his current role in Philadelphia. So I could see the potential with that, but to me, I would not really off the jump unless it was somewhere that really needed a standout WR1. Maybe in that regard, yes, but you say if he goes to even like a Pittsburgh, something like that, a team that runs a lot. Even when Deontay Johnson was here, we're just not throwing to one guy that much. Maybe that changes this year for Pickens, but no, I don't think. For him to go another team, I would automatically, spike him there. I'd probably maybe go up a spot or two too as well. Like I did, now that he got the extended contract, but. Yeah, he's somebody who I think he could probably evolve into that role and be the guy. But I think the role he has where he can just kind of catch medium routes here and there and maybe hit the long ball once or twice a game. I think that's where you want Devonta Smith. So I like the signing. Like I said, I think with Jalen Hurts, continue continuity there as far as teammates, as far as coaching. I think things are, he has a promising future there, and I still like Devonta Smith. So I'm happy actually that he stayed. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I've had those questions asked because I had someone, who's a big Devonta Smith, fan, and they were like hoping he would be in a more, I guess, in a more traditional wide receiver one role, a Buffalo, I wouldn't say Carolina now with Deontay, but like, in a role where he can actually really stand out. And, I thought about that as far as, a fantasy aspect. And I think a lot of people forget the fact that sometimes you just got to be in the right offense. I know Philly struggled last season. Offensively, there were a lot of concerns, especially with the, OC changing. But sometimes you got to have the right players around you, and having AJ Brown opposite helps. You're not having to be always facing the number one corner or facing double team. Having Jalen Hurts as your quarterback a few years now, I think helps. So I think sometimes we overthink. Oh, we got to go to a team where they don't have the traditional one, and I bring that up with the fact that we've got a lot of great rookies coming into this class that maybe they don't need to be the wide receiver one to have some fantasy relevance. So it's kind of the way I feel about Devonta. Like, I feel the same way. I think staying in Philly was the right move for him. I think as a fantasy aspect, this is the right move for him. I don't know if he would have been any better had he gone anywhere else. I mean, I think even like I always just think Buffalo right now with the whole Diggs situation. If Devonta was the wide receiver one there, would he be better? I don't know. I mean, he'd be getting a lot of opportunities, but I don't know if he'd still be, maybe a squeak top 10, but that's kind of
And
interesting.
durability too. I'd be kind of worried about if he's getting targeted that much, is he going to hold up? He's a little
Yeah.
guy, so that's another concern for me.
Yeah. So another extension. Now we're talking some defensive players. We got DeForest Buckner signing his extension of 2 years, $46 million. I think this is a great move for him. This is one of the premier defensive tackles / defensive ends, if you want to call it, however you put him in your fantasy, in obviously IDP. And he is an absolute animal. He's one of my favorite defensive players in this league, that does not get the attention he deserves. I think this is a great landing spot for him to stay. I'm glad he's not going anywhere else, and just kind of help shore up this defense for the Colts. So I think this is a really good move for him. How do you feel about it?
I love it too, man. This is a monster. We're talking about, defensive tackle, top 2, top 3 in Dynasty, even though he's getting a little bit older now. But the volume and the production just, outweighs any concerns there are. In our last mock draft we did last week, I said that maybe the Colts were going to go defensive tackle. Well, they shored that up now. So everything kind of stays the same. I think they have Grover Stewart there too for another year. So that's perfect. If I can get last year's production in DeForest Buckner this year, I'm more than happy. I'm not looking for anything more. Just hopefully play all 17 games and do well and be consistent like he was this year, because he was a freaking wrecking ball, really. So I love DeForest Buckner. Me personally, I play in high tackle kind of league, so I'm really focused on getting those tackles. And I know defensive tackle, a lot of times we don't see that. We see a few players, Wilkins, Derek Brown from Carolina too. DeForest Buckner, man, at the cream of the crop of that list. He just goes out and gets it and eats every week. So you don't have to just settle for the sacks in between games. You're getting production, weeks 1 through 17, as long as he's out on that field. So I love it. I think it's a great move, and I'm not scared away. I mean, he's getting into upper 20s now, almost 30 years old, but I'm not scared for Dynasty. Give me dependability there, so especially at that volatile position. So I love it. I love it for the Colts, and I love it in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, another 2 years is great. And on top of that, I think, who knows? I think that 2 years is great because, when you are up there in age, you want to see how you perform before they give him another extension, and it gives him an opportunity to show up really well in those 2 years to actually have one more big payday before he does end up at the end of his career. So great move. Absolutely one of the best, and especially if you're in a league that does give you points for tackles for loss, QB hits, things like that. I mean, Buckner is absolutely amazing. So this is a great re-signing. Another, and this is a huge re-signing, was Josh Allen for the Jaguars getting a 5-year, $150 million extension. There were a lot of uncertainty because obviously that's a big payday you got to pay for a guy, but Josh Allen was phenomenal last season. He showed up really well. Obviously, there's always worry when you're talking about a player who's near the end of his contract, and how he's going to perform, because sometimes they perform, outlandishly crazy, and then all of a sudden they get paid in nothing, right? I don't think that's going to happen with Josh Allen. I think he showed that promise well into his last year, and he just showed why he deserves his contract. Jacksonville loves him. If you saw anything on Twitter or X, it was just love from Jacksonville. They were super excited to have him there in Duval. This is a big move. Absolutely one of the best top 5 / defensive ends when it comes to Dynasty. I had him in a few last season, and you can literally set it, forget it, dominate, and that's it. This is a big move for him, and they need that to shore up that defense. That defense has some problems on the back end, but having Josh Allen there is going to only help. What I expect the Jaguars to go after some rookie corners to help those guys this upcoming season. So I think it's a big move. You think the same?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a great signing for Jacksonville. I heard a lot of negativity, like, after that rookie year and until this year, everything in between was kind of muddled, and that's true. You look at the box score, you look at stats, ain't no way around it. That's what it was. But I really do think that this is the type of player that Josh Allen is. So I think it's a good signing in the NFL. I think it's a good signing for fantasy. That continuity, we know where he stands if he's a Jaguar. And you mentioned it's a big move in the NFL. It's enormous, and I'll tell you why. Also, because there was a point in time a few weeks ago when we thought Jacksonville could have franchise tagged Calvin Ridley. They ended up not. They didn't. They franchise tagged Allen. But the fact of the matter is that they ended up re-signing him anyway. Had they come to this deal before the franchise tag, maybe they could have got Ridley, and maybe Gabe Davis is still in Buffalo, right? So huge, I don't want to say turnover, but huge stakes for the NFL and fantasy as well. All these pieces happened after the fact. So I'm overall for Josh Allen. I'm happy that he definitely did get his bag here in Jacksonville. And like I said, I think it's a great move for fantasy, especially for the NFL team. I think that's a defensive line. You give them the bankroll. It's tough to get those guys who hit year after year. He's still young too. So I really like this Josh Allen move. I think it's great. The continuity, if he can give me what he did last year, I'm not looking, I don't need anything more. Just do what you did last year for the next 5 to 6, 7 years, and we're good.
Yeah, I think it's a big move. It's a big payday. I think about one player we'll talk about a little bit later, like Micah Parsons, who technically is being considered as a defensive end, right? And that kind of plays a factor. I mean, 5 years, 150, you're obviously expecting Micah to have even bigger contract than that, but that kind of gives a baseline of what you're expecting to see a player like that come out of. So that does play a factor too. You look at these contracts and how big they're going to be, especially with salary cap increasing and the money that the NFL is bringing in. these players are keeping an eye on what these contracts look like as well. So that definitely is a big thing. A couple more signings I want to talk about. You've got nothing super huge, but you got Royce Freeman. This was just broken earlier. Royce Freeman, the running back, signed a contract with the Dallas Cowboys. And one of the funniest things I saw with that is that, of course, the meme is Jerry Jones is going all in, signing Royce Freeman. It's going to save the day. But right now, that is a significant signing because currently that would put Royce Freeman, Derek Vaughn, Dowdle, Malik Davis as your running back core, and none of them really stand out for me. None of them can be a RB1 or even an RB2 when it comes to fantasy. They'll all be kind of muddled in on this, and we'll see obviously with the NFL draft what Dallas does. But it's a signing. It happened. It's Dallas. It's always going to get news. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? Royce Freeman, I remember him having a nice year a couple years back for Denver. And then after that, he kind of got like passed up. I don't know if it was injuries, what happened there, but haven't heard his name in a while. For all those people who are hoping that like Deuce Vaughn was the next guy, Rico Dowdle, I think this kind of, I don't want to say it kills that vibe, but at the same time, it does bring into question, like, I'm sitting here like, what is going on? Does that mean that they're not going to draft a rookie? They're happy with what they got. They're just getting, depth here, veteran depth to help grow these young guys. Somebody who has veteran leadership, who's been there, done that, who's had some success. Is that what it is? Or is this just kind of a placeholder for training camp and to shore the position up and they're still going to draft somebody? So I really, this is tough to gauge right off the rip, but yeah, if I'm sitting here rostering Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn, I'm a little bit scared because and maybe you're sitting on the other side of the fence and you're saying, hey, that is the depth piece. He's going to be just a training camp signing, and maybe I can go get Rico Dowdle for a lesser price. I can go get one of the backs in Dallas for a lesser price, and maybe that's the truth. If you're really a believer in Dowdle or Deuce Vaughn, go get him now because I think their value kind of maybe is in question now with this signing. What do you think about it, Steve, being a Cowboys fan?
So as a Cowboy fan, the first thing I thought is what a waste of time and money that they're going to possibly spending. I don't think they keep Royce Freeman. I don't think they're even going to keep all three of those backs, with Vaughn and Dowdle, and because I do expect Dallas to draft a running back. There's no way they're not going to. The part of their 30 visits that they had, there were plenty of running backs that were part of that visit. So that is definitely an expectation. A lot of people obviously, in the fantasy world are waiting to see what Dallas does. Like there's two teams in the NFL right now that if they were to draft a running back, that most people will go and draft in their fantasy rookie class, which is the Chargers and the Cowboys. Like those are the two teams that really don't have I would say a premier running back that is going to get anywhere from 150 to 200 touches, right? That's kind of what the expectation is for your starting running back. And I don't see that from Deuce Vaughn. They didn't utilize him even at all last season. Dowdle is probably their best back for Dallas right now. I think he's the one to own if you're going to own a running back. Royce, I will say, on Sleeper already within the last couple hours of this announcement had 20,000 waiver wire ads. So people obviously saw the news, went crazy, already grabbed him. So you're seeing that happening. So like people obviously see this as a chance for a team to really a player that could possibly get some touches. I don't think much of it. In the fantasy space, I think Royce Freeman's going to be a training camp cut, and that's it. But it is something we're going to talk about, because it is relevant, and it's something that if you've got a spot and you're especially in a deep league, grab them, let them sit in your roster for a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, I got that. At the same time, maybe it's because of the panic, maybe he's the starting back. I don't think there's enough track record here. I agree with you. Like I'm not running to the waiver wire. I'd rather stash someone like a Daniel Bellinger, a tight end, someone who might get that opportunity, who's young, who has promise. Somebody like that, even Jalen Tolbert from your same Dallas, Cowboys, I think he could be a priority add over Royce Freeman. Maybe not that sexy of a pick right now because like there's no news breaking for them, but I think time will show that there'll be better ads. There's better ads out there than Royce Freeman. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, Royce Freeman is just a wasted time. I hate
Yeah.
to say. I mean, I wish him luck, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, just a waste of time. So another signing that happened recently was Kyle Duggar for the New England Patriots signed a 4-year, $58 million contract. So great news in the IDP world. Duggar had a great season last season. I mean, they had a pretty good amount of defensive backs that showed up really well for New England, and he was one that really shined. And the fact that they gave him a nice little extension just showed that obviously Gerard Mayo really believes in him. He looked really good. He could be in the box. He could be obviously help with some coverage, had some couple interceptions. Like Duggar looked really good. I had him in I think 3 leagues last season. Didn't expect much out of him, but I was able to put him in my lineup quite often and got a good consistent amount of points out of him. Like I was super excited to see Duggar get this extension. Um, and so for me, like this is probably one of the bigger news besides Josh Allen signing. Like this is a big news for IDP. I think this is going to be big. I haven't really quite gone through my defensive rankings. I usually kind of focus on the offensive side, even though I do a lot of my own rankings for myself when it comes to defense. But I had Kyle Duggar up there easily into my possible, I would say top 15, just because of the ability of he's been in there. And things may change with the rookie draft, but I like Duggar a lot.
Yeah, I like him too. Top 12 for sure. That's where I have him penciled in at. This is a guy who definitely I'm happy to see him stay, to get that deal because I don't think he is the same player if he goes to another team. I've always said that about Kyle Duggar. Something just the Patriots kind of vibe. Like those players, what they mean to the Patriots is not always what they mean to the other teams, just the way the Patriots are. And I don't expect I don't think, hey, we could see a new Patriots team where they're, throwing the ball and doing things different. I still don't expect that until they prove me wrong. I'm going to expect even though Belichick's not there, I think things, when you have the greatest coach of all time, who is your predecessor, I don't think you really change up too much from that. So Kyle Duggar, I think is a great defensive back, specifically a safety. If you're an IDP, that's not you don't have to spend that premium. If he's going in the top 5, if someone takes him top 5, go ahead. That's a high price to pay. For any safety. If you hear me, you'll hear me preach don't buy safeties early. But Kyle Duggar, I think if you can get him a little bit later inside that top 12 or creep into 11, 12, 13, 14, you definitely take him. You have dependability. This is a guy who can get you close to 100 tackles a year, and also do other things additionally. He's a big hitter, forces fumbles, makes big plays. So and interceptions are there too. So not somebody who's going to get back and have Antoine Winfield 5-6 sacks. You don't need that. You're just banking on getting by with tackles and a couple big plays here and there. And Kyle Duggar fits that bill. So I like him a lot. I'm happy that he stayed. If he went somewhere else, say if he goes to the Broncos, I don't know what Kyle Duggar I'm going to get. I don't know how they're going to use him. So I'm really happy to see him stay in New England and, pencil him in. And again, 2024 top 12 defensive back.
Yeah, they moved him around a lot really well. They put him in position to win, and that's what I liked about him. And like I said, he was really consistent last season. He was not a name that I really kind of thought about until I happened to have had him on a few, leagues, and I'm like, man, this guy he's pretty good. I got to give him credit. Another, I would say, defensive back that I got a signing. It's just 1 year, but Tre'Davious White signed with the Rams, 1-year contract. He agreed to a $4 million contract. And this is something that, look, when it comes to fantasy, I don't know how fantasy relevant this is. He has deep cornerbacks are a little bit tougher. Unless you're in a league that's relying on big plays. And even then, if you're relying on big plays, it's tough to be a corner that's getting consistently several interceptions and things like that. So mind you, fantasy aspect, I'm not sure how much of this is a big deal. But with that said, as far as an NFL perspective, if he can stay healthy, Tre'Davious White was a Pro Bowler. He was a phenomenal cornerback going into a Rams team that does need some defensive back help. And they're hoping to get at least 10 to 15 games out of him. He has only played, I think 11 or 12 games combined in the last 2 seasons with injuries. So it has been a struggle for him, which is why obviously Buffalo moved on, because he was one of their best defensive players they had, and that team was stacked. So I think it's a good signing for him. It's not a lot of pressure. It's 1 year, it's a kind of a proven deal for him. He obviously is on the aging side. He's almost 30. So that does have concern, especially with injuries the last 2 seasons. But, I think it's worth the risk for the Rams to kind of grab and see how it plays out. What do you think about that one?
I agree, and I'll echo everything you said. I definitely am not, if I have a league where I'm starting a cornerback, cornerbacks for me gets like nitty and gritty. Give me like a Roger McCreary, someone who's not like a household name. Those guys are really Mike Hilton, who those kind of players are the ones that I'm going for, especially slot corners. But when we're talking about cornerback, elite cornerback, shutdown cornerbacks, he's definitely that guy. Even though he's like you said, he's aging, he's getting close to 30. I still think he can put the pieces together if health permits. And this is a team who's not that far off. I know they lost Aaron Donald. The defense needs some veteran leadership, and perhaps that's another reason why that he signed there. I think that's a great mentality to kind of sign him in 1-year deal. Really, if you get 12, 15 games on the field, you're happy. That's a great signing. But I think behind the scenes, what it's going to do in that locker room, a locker room that I read an article about Matt Stafford's wife saying, Matt Stafford can't really relate to these guys. He's getting older himself. In the locker room, he's getting weird vibes. Like these guys are too young. Maybe Tre'Davious White is kind of a bridge to that, to kind of another veteran to bridge the gap as far as leadership. So I think that it's more behind the scenes than meets the eye. I'm not in St. Louis. I can't really speak on it exactly, but I think it's a great move for a team that's not far off when we talk talent. Maybe these guys even get better with Matt Stafford another year with Puka, and Cooper Kupp had a down year. So, if the offense even turns up a little bit more, defense can fill some holes. I like this team a lot. So I don't think they're too far off. And, that's a contending sign is Tre'Davious White. So I like it. I like it for real life, especially. I'm not really touching him in fantasy though.
Yeah, fantasy not so relevant, but I think it's a good move for just the Rams in general, and good move for Tre'Davious to kind of get another opportunity.
No doubt.
So before we continue, I just want to talk about now a couple things. If you guys haven't, make sure you guys just subscribe. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. If you guys have anything you guys want, comment down below. We'd love to help you guys out with any fantasy relevant content, questions, trades, whatever it is. We'd love to help you guys out. Again, make sure you guys are following both Johnny and I on X as well. We'll be able to help you guys out there, and just kind of see some of the stupid stuff we put on Twitter and Space, and just kind of let the world see. With subscriptions, one thing I want to talk about is I also write articles for IDP Plus. Johnny obviously is in almost every ranking video and podcast with them as well. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys sign up for idpplus.com. Go over there. We've got a nice little promo going on right now. So there's a lot of tools. We've got articles. I mean, there's just constant stuff to help you with fantasy, not just during the season, but also during the off season. So if you sign up for a 1-month subscription with IDP Plus, make sure you do the code mock draft in the promo code to get it for $1 for the first month. Huge signing. I mean, again, even if it's just 1 month you signed up and you did it, you spent $1. I'm telling you, the value you're going to get is way more than that $1. And I guarantee you, once you do that, that subscription is going to stay all season long to help you guys with any of your fantasy. So make sure you guys just subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe on our website, idpplus.com, mock draft in the promo code to get you a $1 month subscription for this month. So I don't know about you. I think we have some great content out there. So make sure you guys are doing that. So the next thing I want to talk about, and this is something that a couple extensions are happening. We got 2 fifth-year options that were signed by the Dolphins. You got Waddle and Jalen Phillips. So both very, very fantasy relevant players getting their 5th-year option, which I'm not shocked. I'm sure you're not shocked. Like both of those guys obviously are dominant young players at each of their positions. And I think it's a bigger signing for Waddle than it is Phillips, just because I think in the fantasy world, when it comes to offense, Waddle had that 1 year without Tyreek Hill and he was dominant. And Tyreek Hill's, I think, 2 years left, and then he says he's retiring. So Waddle is the future wide receiver 1 in this offense. So the 5th-year signing was a big one. Phillips, obviously, as a defensive lineman, was great. What are your thoughts on both of those guys getting their 5th-year options?
It's tough. It's tough, and Jalen Waddle has so much hype. We thought maybe, with Tyreek Hill, we wouldn't see that much of a dip. And we had injury this year. I'm a little bit down on Waddle. You have to wait those 2 years with Tyreek Hill. They're probably going to lock up Tua. I'm on the fence even about Tua. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to be able to put all the pieces together? We saw him do really well for the first half of the season. Then he kind of fizzled. He regressed. So, like, a bunch of moving parts here. Just the fact that you have to put up with Hill being a target hog there, temper expectations for right now. I do think Jalen Waddle, when it's all said and done by the end of his career, he's going to have a great career. I don't think he's going to like fall off the face of the earth, but I do think to put up those wide receiver one, numbers that we were used to his rookie year, you might have to wait another 2 years for that because Tyreek Hill's not going anywhere. Tua, like I said, I have questions about him. Is he really their quarterback of the future? It looks like they're going to invest in him. That's the call they want to make. They got good coaching there. I bet they know him better than I do, but at the same time, I'm not really 100% sold on Tua myself. So, I think it's a good move. I think they throw the ball a lot down there in Miami. And, if they come out firing like they did in 2023, of course, those questions are in the rearview mirror. So, not too far off from really loving that move. So, as far as is he going to be that productive on another team? Maybe he could be even better, when he separates himself from Hill. But he's learning from one of the best wide receivers in the league. And then when Hill eventually is going to ride off in the sunset, boy, it's going to be a nice spot for him, for Jalen Waddle. So expect those rookie year numbers. And as far as Phillips, only one thing that's on my mind is that injury, that Achilles injury. Me personally, I've always said I think I've never had one, knock on wood, but I always think that Achilles injuries, especially in such an explosive sport like football, is the hardest, injury to come back from. I know there's a couple other ones that are up for debate, but I want to see, is the explosiveness going to be there? I wouldn't bank on him being on your team in week one. Maybe this is a guy who you draft later because you get a discount, and then you have to kind of wait 3-4 weeks for him to be able to be in the starting lineup. If that's what you're looking for, he's a great shot in the dark there, great chance to take. But as far as like what he was doing this year, will he return to that form? It might take a year or two. It might take even maybe half a year, I'd say at least. But yeah, for the immediate impact, I think it does really hit that hard. I don't think he'll be the explosive player that he was right off the bat. But I think as far as dynasty, I still love Jalen Phillips. Everyone knows, of course, that he had this injury, so you're not going to be able to sell him right now for top dollar. You have to hold. You have to hope that he comes back to the player he was, and I think he absolutely will. It's just a matter of when. So a little bit of a turbulence in his ride. So, but as far as the team and overall for fantasy, the fact that they continue where they are, arrows up for both of them. Especially with Phillips with time.
Yeah, I will say this. So with the Waddle conversation, I have him at wide receiver 17 in my dynasty. I still am high on him. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill factor does play there. I'm interested in the Tua situation. I've always thought, okay, as a Dallas Cowboy fan, I've lived through several, I would say, good quarterbacks. I know people are going to disagree, but I think Tony Romo and Dak were really good quarterbacks. And I think I'm a little biased. I think Dak was a better quarterback than Romo. Yeah, a little bit more help, but I could see, as a crazy scenario, Dak Prescott does not re-sign with the Dallas Cowboys, which I don't blame him. Goes to Miami because maybe Miami's not sold on Tua. And just imagine having Dak Prescott with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, I think Waddle's ranking could easily move up. Tyreek Hill is obviously a top 5 receiver, in fantasy. I mean, I think that could be a game changer when it comes to something like that. Because right now, the way everything's working, do I think Dallas resigns Dak? Yes. I'm in my heart, I think they're going to do that. But maybe if I'm Dak Prescott, I don't resign. He loves it. He loves the Cowboys. He's been a Cowboy fan. So that could be something that might change Waddle. And again, right now he's my wide receiver 17. Being that he's the wide receiver 2, that's still pretty high for a wide receiver, but I still have some hope for him. As far as Phillips, here's the thing. This year, when it comes to redraft, I'm holding off. I'm not putting him on my roster. When it comes to dynasty, maybe you could buy him low if you desperately need a linebacker / defensive lineman to have some value. The fact that Miami did pick up their 5th-year option does show that they, one, think his healing's doing well, and obviously they believe in him. But yeah, an Achilles tendon is, especially in his position, exploding off the line and things like that, chasing running backs. Like, it's going to take about a full year from now before you really see him back at his prime. And I remember seeing that video and him just popping it. Like, there were a lot of bad Achilles tendon injuries this season. You had the 2 quarterbacks, the playoffs, Dre Greenlaw just running off the sideline. Like, it's a terrible injury because, again, just seeing that happen, it does affect these guys, especially at linebacker. So I am curious how that's going to play out. I think Dynasty, like you said, doesn't. I think his value is still really strong. But redraft, I'm not touching him this year. There's no reason to, because like you said, I don't think he starts till maybe week 7 or week 8, something like that. And I don't think it's valuable. Like maybe pick him up as a waiver later this season when we talk about that. But
Right.
I do think Miami picking them both as fifth years options were smart. Keep your guys. And we'll see how things play out next year. So speaking of a player that could, that kind of obviously in that same division that really ruined the Dolphins, Tom Brady. So his name kind of popped back up, and maybe he just wants his name to pop back up. Like I think it's Aaron Rodgers effect. Like Aaron Rodgers has to be in the news, right? Something has to happen. So Tom Brady was getting a haircut from a pretty, I guess you would call him TikTok, or he's a mainstream like big barber. And I watched a little bit of that video, and there was that question of, hey, what would you consider retiring and coming back? And of course, he had to say, yeah, I'd be open coming back to the NFL. And if he did, it would be with the Patriots or the Raiders. So if you don't know, he does have some stake in the Raiders. And of course, coming back to the Patriots, which I think is funny now that Belichick is gone. I thought that was an interesting little scenario. I mean, is it going to happen? No, I don't think so. I think Tom Brady's loving his retirement and kind of what he's doing. But I just kind of brought that up because I thought it was funny. I thought it was something that, again, nice little clickbait for a lot of people out there. We're loving this, and you got to talk Brady and got their views. If you were serious, I thought about this. Like, if he actually was like, I'm coming back, I'm going to come to the Patriots, right? Because right now they currently don't have a quarterback. He comes back to New England. They draft a quarterback, which can learn a year under to Tom Brady. Where would you rank Tom Brady going into this season if that was actually going to happen? Like, I'm curious because I would put him outside of the top 20 easily. Yeah. Because it's not just Tom Brady himself and his age and being away, but also like they have no receivers. So I just thought it was a funny, like, kind of scenario. Like, would he even be worth grabbing? I mean, maybe in a super flex and you're like 15 people deep in the league, but
yeah, I tell you what, I mean, I wouldn't have him top 20 either. Maybe because I think on my rankings I might have had Daniel Jones down at 30 something. Like I'm also not a Daniel Jones guy. I think it's just a bad team. Coming back off an injury, I don't think it clicks for whatever reason. So yeah, I'd rank him higher than I'd rank him lower than Daniel Jones still. So maybe for me it would be like 30. Bottom tier, and it just. The assumption I would have is just for 1 year. Now, if you're telling me it's 2-3 years, big difference there. But it's Tom Brady. I don't know if we can, bank on that, even if he would say, I want to play 2 more years. I agree with you. I think, this is somebody who likes to keep their name out there. They want to, also continue their legacy. Like, oh, Tom Brady's 43 years old. He's still confident he can come back in here and, and do it. He probably could. But yeah, you like you said, it would be on a bad team with the Patriots. Don't have much to offer. If it's just a 1 year deal, I'd have him probably around 30. And I got a guy like Gardner Minshew. I think at 29 or 30 right now. Who Gardner Minshew, I think he could be a quarterback for the Raiders for the next 2-3 years. Especially if he does well. So there's guys late. Sam Howell, who I believe in. Daniel Jones. You could see the good side of him. There's deep quarterbacks, and like last year we saw so many quarterbacks. Come in and have value. Like even Tyson Bagent, was for Chicago. I'm hanging on to him in my super flex. I think that he's going to have a chance somewhere else. Someone else will pick him up if Caleb Williams doesn't get hurt immediately, knock on wood. But yeah, there's definitely some deep young quarterbacks, and that doesn't bode well for Tom Brady. So listen, Tom Brady, I'm not knocking you down a peg. It's just a bad time to come in and, expect your name to be at the top of the list again. So that's where I have him. Steve, how about you? Where would you have him if he came back for 1 more year?
I would have Daniel Jones ranked higher just because of his rushing ability. I know he's coming back from the injury. Again, because of the receiving core, that concerns me. Going from that beautiful Florida weather where the humidity helps your joints and everything, going up to that frozen, winter wonderland. I don't think that would help him at all. I would put him probably like 29, 30, 31, somewhere around there. If he would actually serious to come back, I would put him in that area. because I think there's some solid rookies coming in that I'd rather have, in this class. You obviously got, again, I hate to say it, but a Daniel Jones that does have a rushing ability that obviously is a big fantasy value. But it's it's one of those fun conversations we can have and talk about and joke. But I couldn't see Tom Brady coming back. I think he wants to be out there. He wants to talk. I will say Florida Tom Brady is totally different than New England Tom Brady, and I think he's just having fun with it.
Now we're two level-headed analysts here who, are doing podcasts. We're in it. We're breathing it. Don't get me wrong. If Tom Brady, if there's truth to this, pick him up and start sending trades out, because I think the world will go crazy for Tom Brady. I think there will be some crazy trades. So if this is true, pick him up and trade him. That's my suggestion. Steve, you back that?
When he talked about it, I think it was a day or so ago when this whole thing kind of happened. I would tell you right now, he popped up on Sleeper. Several people were picking him up just because, so, there are people who, they see something real quick, they're going to grab them. You got those guys who live and breathe off of X and see any little snip of news and they're like, oh, I got to get him. I've got a few buddies of mine that, man, I don't know how they even survive. Like, I feel like they work on Twitter and just trying to find any possible news. It could be from Joe Schmo with a freaking verification badge and they believe what happened. So, you can't take everything out there. Like I said, I think we both agree he's not coming back. I think we both think he's going to be, living his retirement, enjoying himself, but it's a good, good football talk. It's fun to talk about. Yeah. I mean, maybe, you can't trust him.
For sure. We miss him.
Yeah, can't trust him. So the last thing I want to talk about that I think is some big news. Obviously, OTAs kind of started this week. Now they're all voluntary, meaning the players don't have to show up. This isn't required. But a lot of players do like showing up for these because, again, you're trying to get your team back. It's kind of getting back with the boys and in the locker room and just having fun and kind of getting into that training mode and getting ready for the season. So there were a lot of news coming out, some good, video footage of these guys. But there are 4 players, at least big names, that I want to talk about that are not showing up to their voluntary camps. You've got Cortland Sutton, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and then Micah Parsons. Now, of the 4, 3 are due to contract situations. Micah Parsons is a little unique based off of his training regimen and things like that he's got going on. Dallas does allow him to kind of do things off-site, doing his own thing without having to be at these obviously voluntary ones. So his isn't necessarily a contract one, even though Dallas obviously is working on potential extension. But the other 3, and they're all receivers, those are big names when it comes to fantasy, specifically CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. And those 2 both obviously are doing this because of contract situation. So, of those 3, Cortland, obviously the odd man out, but he does have some value that does play a factor. We'll see. I think he's the one of those 3 that would be traded. You're not seeing these teams get rid of CD or Justin Jefferson, but what are your thoughts on, players not showing up to voluntary? Is that a big deal? Not big deal? Like, how do you feel about that?
You know what? I feel like as long as there's not smoke from it, as long as it's not real, there's not fire. I think 9 times out of 10 when this has happened, we look back in a week, we forget about it, because when the season picks up, they're there. Like you said, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Justin Jefferson. Now, Cortland Sutton, maybe his is a little bit different. You got an older guy, a team that is kind of rebuilding. Maybe he ends up going somewhere else. This is more of a firm ground from Sutton. But as far as the Lamb and Jefferson, I don't think there's any, fire with the smoke. I think it's just smoke is what it is. And, as far as these guys, we're talking about wide receiver 1, 2, if not, then 3, both of these guys in the top 3 dynasty. So I think maybe it's kind of like a, how guys, step out of the draft. We saw these quarterbacks not run, kind of limit the wear and tear on their bodies. I think that's kind of what the teams respect that, because we've seen a lot of injuries happen early on. I'm willing to bet that these guys, they're veterans now. It's not like you had a diva, 1 year did well off a rookie. If it's Puka saying I'm holding out in camp, I'm not coming to practice, I think we got a different story to talk about. But these are veterans. When they hit the ground, it's going to be hit the ground running. So I think the teams, they understand that they're not far off. They have good teams. They're playoff contenders. So I think you got to protect, respect and protect superstar players. So I don't really see much smoke from those two. Like I said, maybe Cortland Sutton's a different story. Hopefully I'd like to see him get traded because I like Marvin Mims there. I think there's room to grow for Mims. So get everybody out and let Mims run it, baby. That's what I'm saying in Denver. That's my stance. So I'll be preaching that all off season. But like I said, as far as these big two, I'm fine with it because we know when the season starts, they're going to start. So yeah, I'm cool. Limit the wear and tear. Don't get them hurt, and really beef up and get ready for the real season.
Yeah, I think the contracts are a real deal. Like I think they obviously do want their extension. I think a lot of it is, I think both of them, and I would include Chase, Jamar Chase in this, is that they're all kind of seeing who's going to sign first, because that really does come play a factor of the contract situation. I think that's going to be the toughest challenge. Like obviously both Minnesota and Dallas are not going to let these two go away.
Right.
Without some crazy, someone just offered like 3 first rounds. Like that's a different story. But like these guys are going to continue their careers where they are. And they are my wide receiver 1 and 2. You guys ought to see what that is, but I have them as my wide receiver 1 and 2. And these guys are both phenomenal athletes. So I don't think the camp is a big deal of them missing it as far as when it comes to fantasy and things. And I actually think, I think, for example, Dallas, I think this is I wouldn't say good thing, but with CeeDee Lamb not being there, it allows Dak to continue his relationship with Jalen Tolbert, continue his relationship with, Jake Ferguson and Brandon Cooks and like some of the other players that maybe could use a little bit more opportunities, right? Like Jalen Tolbert is a big one, like gives him the chance to be the wide receiver 1 this week with say CeeDee Lamb out, and vice versa, gives Addison an opportunity to really shine with Jefferson out. So there is some also back end that I think could also be kind of I guess you would say a beauty in this situation with these guys not being there. Cortland is definitely the one that I do have. I think it's a little bit more than smoke. I think there's a little bit of a flame coming out of that one because I think he is frustrated with the situation going on. You don't have a quarterback. If Denver doesn't move up in this draft, they definitely don't have a quarterback. And does he really want to be part of a team that is in a full rebuild? Like he'd rather go to a team that's going to give him some money, give an opportunity to shine. And it very well could happen draft night, right? Like I think you and I are both looking forward to seeing where these players land. Are there going to be some fun trades? Like, and he's the one of those guys that absolutely may not be a lock coming into this season.
Still a wide receiver 1 for his team, though. In my rankings, I think I have him down in the 30s for being a wide receiver 1. That's pretty low. So, I don't think the Denver Broncos respect him that much, and maybe that's kind of like his mindset. Hey, you don't respect me. I want that money. I might go get it from somewhere else. I think he could definitely go get himself a nice contract elsewhere. So definitely agree with you. I think there's fire to that, and interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah. So that is our show for this week. Again, thank you guys so much for listening or watching us on YouTube. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Again, make sure you guys check out all the promotions we've got. Check out our articles on IDP Plus. Stay tuned for our live show next week for the NFL draft. And again, if you guys are not following, make sure you guys are following Johnny freaking F1 on X and follow me, AVG Joes _FF, Average Joe's Fantasy Football as well. Every social you could think of. Make sure you guys follow us. Make sure you guys are subscribed, and we'll check you guys out next time.